Hey guys, this is Oscar here with another video. I've had fun and just had to delete 20 minutes of recording because my mic wasn't plugged in properly, so having fun, gonna repeat myself, but it'll all be new to you, so let's go. I've made a video like this before, the last time we had new additions to ADV 50. So the way the additions work is first we vote to see, what Pokemon do we want to get rid of. Generally it's because they're considered unviable, and then we find, what's the best replacements. So first I'll go over, what was gone, what's new, how are these Pokemon viable but not broken, what sets can they run, how do they impact the meta, sample teams, all that good stuff. There's plenty to talk about. Let's go. So first of all, the Pokemon that were removed were Crawdaunt and Ludicolo. There was no Crawdaunt and Shiftry. Oh my goodness, Anyway, Crawdaunt and Shiftry, and in addition, Cloud9 was banned as well. So first I'll go over the Pokemon bans. I'll discuss what the Cloud9 ban means and why it was done as well in a second. But first of all, Crawdaunt is just too weak and too frail, so its coverage made it Spike's bait for Fortress. Azumarill, much more powerful, comparable as like a physical water type. Its typing is just not that good. Resisting Psychic with like Water, Fire, Ice is nice. It's good against Chimecho and Slowking. If it weren't for the fact that Slowking can like pretty much two-hit KO it with Surf, with a max special attack Surf. So it doesn't even like do its job defensively properly against the stuff where it like literally resists or is immune to every attack, which is just like really not good. So nobody voted against removing Crawdaunt. Everyone was pretty happy that it's just not good enough. Shiftry, around 80% of people voted to remove it, so it was still comfortable majority, but there were like a few dissenters, people who thought it still had merit, which is understandable. Shiftry's problem is it's just like quite slow, frail. Its typing does it no favors, and very predictable as well. Even though it had, like Cacturn did, quite a large move pool, can't really make use of much of it. Any like physical set you run into Fortress. So in the Sunny Beam set, where you basically run Sunny Day, Solar Beam, HP Fire, and then you like pretty much forced to just run Explosion. And then when you're talking about, well, what other mons could fit on Sun and use Explosion, there's like Camerupt and Steelix, which target similar Pokemon. They all target Altaria and Mantine. There's other Pokemon Shiftry targets that they don't, but still pretty good. And those Pokemon have like actual useful resistances, like fire and electric for like Camerupt and like Steelix. Steelix is obviously like a great defensive Pokemon. You don't need me to tell you that. So it's just not great. The only advantage it has over those is just being really fast in the sun. But yeah, Shiftry, understandably, some people were less sure about it needing to go, but in the end it went. And yeah, I think that's the right call. It's not implausible, of course, that it could come back at some point. As people understand the meta better, maybe they were like, actually, do you know what, Shiftry could really make some nice sun offense with it. Or, I really think like a Thief set could do something. I don't know. Unlikely, but it is not foreclosed on forever. It's not foreclosed on forever for Crawdaunt either, but I think it's even less likely for that. The Cloud9 ban. So, like with the Shiftry ban, 80% roughly voted for it. First of all, note that this only impacts Golduck. Altaria doesn't get Cloud9 in Gen 3. Always has Natural Cure. Clear that up first, because some people might get confused about that. Second of all, about like what Cloud9 does. So stuff like Swift Swim is invalidated. The weather boosts and nerfs are invalidated. And Solar Beam still takes 2 turns. So if you have Sunny Beam, Vileplume against a Cloud9 Golduck, then it's slower, and it takes 2 turns to hit it with Solar Beam, which makes it really predictable, really bad. Basically walled by a water type, which is really bad for a Sun Sweeper. Like, really bad. So, yeah, there's that. It's pretty flawed. it's pretty strong. Sorry, Cloud9. Just thinking about like other tiers with Cloud9, and like Rayquaza in like Uber's tiers. It's actually pretty cool. But yeah, I digress. Anyway, so yeah, Cloud9 is banned, which should help, in particular, Sun teams, which means teams with Sunny Day Vileplume, basically. And also Rain teams in particular, it'll help against offense, which has been pretty dominant lately. With like the addition of Sceptile and Xatu's really helped that, as well as like better understanding Tauros and Linoon. So yeah, that's the impact of that, and increasing the viability of weather teams in turn should probably increase the viability of like stall teams a bit, and just balances the meta out a little bit more, as well as like paralysis based teams. So yeah, that's that. Now let's get into Ludicolo and Shedinja. These two Pokemon, how are they viable? Why are they not too good? Let's start off with Ludicolo, which is a bit of it's a simple enough mon to understand. I've put two different sets here. I'll be showing like sample teams as well with both of these sets. The Rain Dance set is like the most obvious one, the easiest to use and most intuitive one to come up with as well. And obviously, like these spreads can like be varied a bit as well, but yeah. As a Rain Dance sweeper, it's compared to like Huntail, which is the other Rain Dance sweeper, and typically you'd use them both together. It's better against Lantern, it's better against grass types, it's worse against Muck, as Muck can one-hit KO it back and pivot into HP Grass. It's worse versus Mantine, as it's hard to, fit like HP Electric, and then you've got to run like Giga Drain Stab and, either no Icy or no Rain Dance. It's not great. Or even like no Grass Stab as well, which would be really weird and pointless. So yeah, that's so how the offensive one works. Muck is like used on about a third of teams, so that certainly helps keep Ludicolo in check. There are other checks to it as well, which are about as good against Huntail, like Thunder Wave, Softball, Clefable, which can switch in on the Rain Dance turn, for example. Ludicolo itself is a Rain answer, and like the brand new Shedinja is also an answer to Rain Mons. So yeah. That's it. That's why it's viable. In terms of like the impact it has on range structures as well, it does have a really good impact in the sense that range structures become like a whole lot more flexible. Because previously it was like being stonewalled by Lantern and then having like these other checks as well to deal with. Sometimes you'd see like Lantern and Muck together, or like either of those plus like Clefable as well, and you'd have like Meganium and so on. So in terms of like that, you're not as worried about Lantern. It's still a problem to deal with, like especially like a Protox set is still really nasty for Rain to deal with, even with Ludicolo and so on. But it makes Rain less linear and less singularly focused on busting one wall, which is just makes it so much more playable, so much like a fair bit less about like exploding on the right Pokemon with like Glalie or Electrode or Wailord or whatever you have, Fortress maybe even. All of that going for it. And just, yeah, it makes Rain so much better, even though, as you can see, on the other side of the screen, I'm like doing like hand movements, even though you can't see it. It does make talking easier. But yeah, Ludicolo, the Subseed set. The set could vary a bit. It does have other moves it could use, of course, like Ice Beam, Toxic, Seismic Toss, Protect. But the key of it is HP Grass with like Rain Dish and like massive Spadef investment, because this is another Golduck answer, which is something that people have been craving for a long time, and we do tend to a lot of the changes lately have definitely been helping make Golduck less of an absolute monster. I think like no matter what we do, it's still going to be like an S rank threat as long as it keeps Hypnosis at least. But yeah, this set, Quad Resistor Water, 2 times Resistor, well, Ice Neutral, And, you know, got Grass Stab. Leech Seed as well is good against Golduck, so... And then Rain Dish as well makes it even nastier in Rain as a wall to get through. So yeah, there's a lot going for it defensively. Obviously, there's like a lot of competition with like other grass types, other water types, Lantern, and so on. But I have found I did end up finding a team where I really needed it, so I've included it. It is included in the sample sets as well for you to build with at your leisure. So yeah, that's Ludicolo. Shedinja. Now this is a Pokemon that some people really love, some people really hate. It's really weird. Like, there's no getting around it. Shedinja is a weird Pokemon. In terms of like my viability rank as well, sort of where I put Shedinja C, I put like Ludicolo at like B+. Initially, these can of course like change with time. But you know, the inner noob in me loves Shedinja. Other people can like hate it because it's so weird. They'll think, well, it's crap because, you know, it lands on spikes and it dies, which it does, or it like instantly wins matchups, or it's like useless in most matchups. Like all of those sort of different things. And I'll basically explain why the meta right now is suitable for Shedinja. So in terms of like those problems, like first of all, let's just address like the spikes thing. Is like that is unavoidable. Shedinja, it steps on spikes and it dies. What can you do? You know, that's just how it is. Unfortunately. But in ADV 50, we've got 2 spikers, we've got 2 spin blockers, we've got like 7 different legal spinners. So there's different configurations you can definitely look at for supporting Shedinja. But you do need rapid spin support. It's not optional for Shedinja, I really think. Unless you're doing something like really crazy with it. Which, hey, give it a try, I guess. But yeah, rapid spinning against the spin blockers in the long term is very feasible. In the short term, it can be a bit more difficult. You know, the metagame has nice hazard dynamics, is basically what I'll say. Far from a guarantee that you can get rid of spikes, but if you really build around it, you can make it happen most games and still make a solid team. So that's one side of things that just like is an inevitability with Shedinja. In terms of like spikes usage in the tier as well, it's about 2 and 3 teams, according to the data that we have. I don't feel like pulling it up now, but actually, yeah, maybe. Alright, actually, okay, with a bit of TV magic for those of you watching, rather than just listening, we can see the spikes, the rapid spin, and the spin blocker usage. Should be noted that the spin blocker usage is only on teams with spikes, so it doesn't look just at like the overall usage of ghost types, but specifically on teams with spikes on them. And you can see there that yeah, spikes are used on about 50, about 60, about 2 and 3 teams have spikes. So yeah, it's an issue for Shedinja. It's not unsolvable. You can see as well, actually, only about a third of those teams having a spin blocker does suggest that if you're really dedicated to spinning, it is plausible. But anyway, back to Shedinja. So that's the hazard side of things. The other thing is like the matchups, like the lopsiding matchups. So 2 things you want is you want Shedinja to be viable in most matchups, so wall something. Like at least 1 Pokemon, please. And the other thing you want is you don't want there to be matchups where it rules like 4 or more Pokemon, or like even all 6. Let's get to like what Pokemon it typically walls on most teams is because the meta's like really adapted around Forretress, which shares a bug type in common with Shedinja. There's a lot of fire moves, there's also like rock moves and flying moves and so on that fly around a lot. So a lot of things already has super effective coverage for Shedinja. In fact, most Pokemon. The main ones that don't are water types, like Golduck, Rain teams, and so on. Some water types can hit it, so like Rock Slide, Kabutops, Toxic, Lantern, and Whiscash can. So there is that side of things. But yeah, there's 11 water types in a tier of 50 Pokemon, so you do see them on most teams. There's also no Pursuit as well, which I'd note is, and no Sand, which are two huge things that just like completely make Shedinja unviable in OU. There's no way of putting it otherwise. But yeah, not those two things not being in the tier, huge for Shedinja. So I digress. Anyway, so in ADV 50 anyway, water types present on most teams. Shedinja walls them most of the time. Makes it useful in most matchups. Pretty good. What about like some other things as well that it walls? Just like there's some random stuff as well, like a Zoomrill, unless it's got HP Ghost. I mean, it is a water type, but it's a physical one, so I sort of like thought I'd mention it. On Sun, it tends to run HP Ghost, and like on other teams, it might run like Sub Punch, Return Hydro Pump, or something like that. So there's a Zoomrill, and then like also like CB Tauros, Drum Fable as well. Like there's a couple weird other things that it walls as well, which is nice to have. But mainly you're counting on it to be like a solid answer to water types, like maybe supporting a Muck or something as well, so that it can take less damage and so on. And yeah, I'll get to like how we actually like really use it. Like first of all, like how we build with it. Second of all, like how we really use it. But yeah, in terms of lopsided matchups, then with the answering water types, so you think, well, what about rain? Does it just wall rain? And the answer is no. We don't have wall rain in the tier. We've not got any water and ice types. Sorry, I just had to make a little pun. Does it wall rain teams? Well, does rule the Swift Swimmers. That's for sure. At least, you know, not Kabutops, but Huntail, Ludicolo. Absolutely. Does it instantly win on the matchup? Hell no. First of all, these teams often have spikes, as we'll see actually, because we are going to look at rain teams since we've added Ludicolo to the tier. So I'll be showing off rain samples. But what if they don't have spikes? Then, you know, there tends to still be auxiliary Pokemon, auxiliary offensive threats that can hit Shedinja. So like Kabutops with Rock Slide, Misdreavus with Thief. Well, actually, you'll tend to run that on like spikes teams, but anyway, you'll see on like the other teams as well, got like a Hitmonlee actually with Rock Slide on it that hits Shedinja, and so on. So there's against Spikesless Rain, it is kind of disgusting. That's about it. And Rain's generally best with spikes, but it's something you can toy with. Spikesless Rain. Yeah, that's kind of where it's at with that. Yeah, so useful in most matchups. Of course, it's going to suck versus Sun, but yeah. And not instantly winning any matchups. So like that's about as good as it can get with Shedinja. Is you don't want it to just like be like a horrible matchup fish. You don't want it to be unviable because of all of the passive damage flying around hitting it. An ADV 50 meets those criteria at this point. So what can it run? That's like the next question. These aren't the early viable moves on Shedinja, but I've put up sets here. The first one is like just a bread and butter Lumberry on it because leftover sucks. And Lumberry gives it a 1 toxic survival. That's just pretty nifty. Max attacker speed because like literally no other investment is useful. And like the first set is just dual stab Protox, like the most simple basic set in all of Pokemon. Hit stuff, poison stuff. Yeah, what can you do? And then there's also like a thief set here that I've put, which is interesting because Pokemon like Fortress like to switch into it. Stealing those leftovers is really nice, even though it can't itself use them. That's not really a huge deal. You do give up like a stab attack or something, but it's a consideration. But beyond that, there's actually several other moves that you can consider. Grudge. Shedinja's not that hard to KO. If you're faster than something that KOs it, you can at least make it run out of PP in a move. It doesn't get Destiny Bond, so you can't just do that and choose Fortress. And of course, note that doesn't help you against Toxic. And it is still pretty slow. So, you know, that's a move that's there. what about stuff that like punishes switching? So like even like poison immune ones. Well, LRXC mentioned Confuse Ray. Note that Swagger is banned in the tier, so you can't use that. But Confuse Ray disrupts just about everything. And there's also Baton Pass as well, which is I think a really nice idea that I do think should be used, even though I've not included it here. Since it let Shedinja keep momentum. Like say you switch it into a Golduck, and it like hydro pumped into nothing. Then you can Baton Pass safely as they switch into like I don't know, Tauros or whatever, and you keep momentum. I think that's genuinely a really nice option for it. Like I'd say that's the best move I've not included. It doesn't learn Will-O-Wisp in Gen 3, sadly, because otherwise that would be awesome. Substitute and Rest don't work on it at all. Don't even think about it. Like, Rest just fails because it's always at full HP or dead. Sub doesn't work. If it does work, it'll literally just KO Shedinja, but I think it'll just fail. Yeah. And Swords Dance sets. You can't use Swords Dance and Baton Pass together in ADV 50 on anything, so SD would be for its own usage. You do have perfect 2-move coverage in Hidden Power Fighting and Shadow Ball, so like that's cute, I guess. Gosh, could you use it with like Sub Pass? I'm just like having ideas on the fly here actually, but like Sub Pass to like an SD Shedinja. That's kind of cute. Like, hey, maybe with like HP Fighting, Shadow Ball, like maybe Silver Wind or something as well, or Agility, Dual Status, Dual Double Dance Shedinja. It's a cute idea. I don't think it's that good though. There's probably better things you can do with your time. I mean, it's just like adding an extra layer of support when you're already like really going all out for rapid spins. So I'd probably advise against that and go for stuff that is a bit less demanding for it. So that's what it can do. In terms of using it as well, some basic advice. Don't reveal it like turn 1, don't lead with it. You don't want to give it away really early before you know like whether they have spikes and so on, like what their team is, because like, teams generally will try and protect their spikes quite aggressively, although as we saw only about a third of spikes teams have spin blockers. So if you don't give away that you've got Fortress until it's too late, well, at least until it's like a bit deeper into the game, then maybe you can use that lack of information that your opponent has to your advantage and get off a spin when maybe they wouldn't have allowed it because they wouldn't have realized like the level of consequence of like losing that one spike, thinking like, oh, maybe I can get it later, and so on. So yeah, I definitely say don't reveal it too early, but once you do reveal it, like the power of Shedinja isn't just, well, if you get rid of these Pokemon, then it just ends the game. And like, that's nice, but to be honest, a lot of Pokemon could do that to some degree. But it's also that you force your opponent to consider it every time, so they'll be throwing out like more Toxics, more Leech Seeds, more super effective attacks. If they're using like a Choice Banner, they're more likely to hit like Rock Slide or HP Ghost or whatever, or like, maybe not be using their nasty stabs quite as much, and that can make them easier to switch into, like CB Golem or like HP Ghost CB Tauros or whatever, or Crobat with Choice Band, like any of its flying type moves, like Air Cutter, Aerial Ace, and Wing Attack are all options. Wing Attack's better than Aerial Ace, but Air Cutter's interesting for like the high crit rate, which is nice against Fortress. I digress. We don't need to go into like the nitty gritty details of Crobat right now. But the point is that Choice Banders, it can force them into using what's maybe not the best move otherwise, for fear of letting in Shedinja, making no progress whatsoever. But it varies. But that's to me like the strength of it once you've revealed it. But I feel like it's a Pokemon that as it's in the tier, we'll get to know it better, learn how to use it better. It's a curiosity. It's a weird mon, but it's in a state right now where it's all right. It also walls Fire Moveless Muck, which is kind of funny. Like Curse, Sludge Pump, HP Ground Protect is sort of like an idea that I've used before on Superman teams. So there is that. But yeah. Anyway, that's Shedinja. Now it's time really to look at some sample teams. I'm gonna try and speed things up a little bit. We're already 25 minutes in, but here's Rain. It shouldn't be anything like shocking to you. See like a Rain team, but you got Ludicolo and Huntail together. Ludi with like Lumberry because it's probably the one you sent earlier. Is it's a little bit harder to wall. It's a little bit stronger maybe if you like going modest. I don't know everyone like timid here versus modest in like the samples. I'll probably go one way or the other on both. Put that with like a Huntail as well. You got 2 Rain sweepers. You've got spikes and spin blocking, and then you've got like Lantern and Steelix, which hold the team together defensively as well. And yeah, there's nothing super surprising about that. Ludicolo, Rain offense. I've also got this team, which is a bit more novel. So you've got Kabutops as well as a tertiary Rain Dance setter. In fact, in this team, it's 1 of 4. Also spins and has its stabs. So it's sort of like a utility Pokemon. It's really sort of like meant to be like a nice punish to offense. Like Choice Band's Tauros locks in to return against it. And then you Rain Dance as it attacks again, because like Kabutops might be like 3-hit KO'd. You get off like an attack and then you follow up. Rather than just like attacking and doing like 40 and that being the end of it. Or maybe you Rain Dance and Rapid Spin. It just turns it into like more of a support one. That you've got Kabutops, you've got Hitmonlee as well. This team does struggle more with Shedinja, ironically. But other than that, it's an interesting Rain offense. The Subseed set, of course, you fit that on very different teams. Here it is on like a store with Flareon and Chimecho, and just like an interesting setup with Heal Bell and Wish support, Spike support, spin blocking. Just your all-purpose stall. And it's just the right glue for that particular set of 5 Pokemon. Is really like the long and the short of it there. Just handling water types so completely, handling rain so completely. I mean, if you put Lantern there, then you just struggle with Ludicolo Rain, ironically enough. So it's one way of using Ludicolo. And then Shedinja stall. This one doesn't have spikes. You could try and fit spikes as well, like spikes, spin. Fortress would be spikes without spin, and then fit a separate spinner. But this team is like it's 5 Pokemon that are honestly pretty solid on their own. But Shedinja helps like CB Tauros. It helps with Drum Fable. It helps with Rain. It helps with like Golduck. It backs up Muck to let it do Muck things. It's almost not strictly necessary. Yeah, it fits. It's well supported. It's a stall team. No, it's a difficult one to work with. It really is, but it has its upsides. So yeah, that's a little showcase of like the sample sets of sample teams. Why these Pokemon are viable, but like far from broken as well. I'll be including these teams as well in the description below. I hope that you've enjoyed. Come play ADV 50. It's a load of fun. Lots of leave your likes and comments and subscribe and stuff if you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Been Disaster Area. Continue to be, I guess. Bye bye.